This is one of 6 regional forums being held around the United States for the purposes of gathering input for the Soil and Water Conservation Act. It's part of the charge to USDA-Natural Resources Conservation Service.
It's a pleasure for us to host one of the 6 regional USDA agricultural landscape forums here at SUNY Cobleskill. As required by Congress in the Soil and Water Resources Conservation Act, these forums help ensure USDA's programs for the conservation of soil, water, and related resources are responsive to the long-term needs of the nation. This allows for a vigorous national debate about how to improve agricultural and conservation outcomes in the context of tight budgets, the need for greater government efficiency, and rapid advancements in technology and private sector innovations. Today, we seek input from our regional stakeholders on natural resource conservation issues, as well as economic and public policy issues related to agriculture and rural America. There will be 3 policy sessions today with the following themes: water security, climate variability, landscape integrity. As you discuss these important issues, our agricultural leaders also need to grapple with long-term predictions of increased food and fiber demands from a growing global economy, while at the same time fostering an environment which promotes sustainability of our natural resources and farmlands. Participation in today's forums will help to shape agriculture and natural resource policies for many years to come. Thank you for taking the time to share your ideas and provide your input on these critically important topics. And again, welcome to SUNY Cobleskill. It's a pleasure to have you here.
We look to USDA and the federal government to lead by example in terms of protecting agriculture and particularly farmland. And we see a need for better data collection, analysis, and collaboration of the federal government with state and local partners. We have found that technical assistance money is as important as financial assistance money for many types of farmers. Those are small urban farms, small rural farms, new farmers, beginning farmers, many folks who don't qualify for other NRCS conservation program money, but they need that technical assistance. And what we've seen is that because of the farm bill conservation programs tend to rule the roost because they have technical assistance associated with them. And that leaves people who may not be eligible for some of the farm bill programs sort of left at the bottom tier. They're the ones that don't get reached if there's not enough money out there. So that how do we figure out a way to make sure that we are able to reach all the diverse sector of agriculture in the region through technical assistance? And lastly, we think that we should be prioritizing protected farmland, given that there is a significant amount of it in the region. If you were going to look for other conservation dollars, federal conservation dollars, shouldn't they go first to land that we know is going to stay in production? Conversely, do you really necessarily want to think about putting EQIP dollars into an operation that could disappear 5 years down the road? Is that the best use of the investment if you have protected land versus unprotected land and you have to make a choice?
I guess I'd like to start off by picking up on many of the things that Chris said and recognizing that many of the recommendations that she made about tax policy and conservation easements and new ways of thinking about how to deal with land conservation, I think apply equally well to forests as they do to agricultural land. And in many cases, I think they're much more fully developed and thought out on the agricultural side than they are on the forestry side. So I would encourage you all to think about those ideas that Chris talked about, not just in terms of agriculture, but also in terms of forestry. And I think it makes the point that we need to work cross-disciplines so that forest advocates can learn from the agricultural people, ag folks can learn from forest people, and we also need to work across jurisdictions. So I guess one of the lessons for me from that is that NRCS and indeed the whole Department of Agriculture need to support those kinds of cross-agency, cross-discipline, and cross-jurisdictional kind of efforts. Well, just to be clear, what do I see landscape integrity as involving? First of all, it needs to be inclusive, so it needs to include all the aspects of the ecosystem, and I would also include productive human uses of those resources in order for it to really accomplish landscape integrity. It needs to be sustainable. It needs to, as I mentioned, maintain the sustainable uses of these resources. This isn't just about protectionism. It needs to be about use of the agricultural lands, use of our forest lands productively for all the goods and services that they provide. It needs to be large scale, and when I think about landscape integrity, I'm thinking of minimum tens of thousands of acres, and better hundreds of thousands of acres, and better still millions of acres.
I have a strong connection with farmland in that it connects people to nature. People that were lucky enough to grow up on farms usually have a very strong connection to nature. And I think that's something we need to foster and grow. But we live in a changing agricultural landscape. It's under heavy development pressure, urban sprawl, right? There was an article in the New York Times just this week, I think, or last week, that compared the price of farmland to the next housing bubble. And that it keeps increasing, it keeps getting, that's disturbing on a number of levels. But it's really disturbing for the impact it could potentially have on wildlife that depend on the agricultural landscape. The development pressure leads to things like habitat fragmentation. Grass and birds in particular are very susceptible to habitat fragmentation. These are birds that need a large area, and when I say large, I don't mean 25 acres, I don't mean 50 acres, I mean 100 acres and bigger area of good quality grassland in order to breed, in order to thrive.
Once again, thank you very much, and let's give a big round of applause to thank everyone who made this possible.